Okay, so today we're gonna dive into something that's really reshaping the global energy landscape.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and for a long time we thought of power grids as like, pretty much a national thing. You generate and distribute within your own borders, but
Exactly. Yeah, you had your own little contained system, but
but things are changing, and I think this is something our listeners are really interested in. Given the sources they sent over, it's clear that
absolutely, this is definitely on people's minds, and it's
yeah, and it's a big shift. We're seeing this increasing push to connect power grids across regions and even entire continents. So
yeah, the age of interconnected energy, I guess we could call it.
I like that. Yeah, the age of interconnected energy.
Has a nice ring to it.
Yeah. So let's get into it. What are we looking at here? What's driving this trend?
Well, I think a big part of it is the rise of renewable energy.
Mm.
As we shift away from fossil fuels,
Right.
the sources of energy are changing, and they're not always conveniently located.
Right. Right. Yeah, you can't just drill a hole and find solar power everywhere you go.
Exactly, and that's where the challenge comes in because, solar, wind, geothermal, these resources are distributed very unevenly across the planet.
So some countries hit the jackpot with abundant sunshine while others are left.
Yeah, in the metaphorical dark.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we solve this? How do we ensure that everyone has access to clean energy when the resources themselves are so unevenly spread out?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And it's leading to some pretty ambitious solutions.
Yeah, I mean, some of the projects we're going to talk about today are mind-blowing. Like we're talking about underwater power cables stretching thousands of kilometers across oceans.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. Like the Morocco-U.K power project, that's the one that aims to bring renewable energy generated in North Africa all the way to Britain via a massive subsea cable.
Yeah, that's the X-Links project, right?
Right, X-links, exactly. And then you have the North Atlantic transmission one link that's even crazier. It's like an underwater power bridge between North America and Europe.
Yeah, I mean, the sheer scale of these projects is incredible, but it also highlights the complexity of the huge financial investments and the cutting-edge technology required to make this happen.
Absolutely. And the level of international cooperation that's needed, I mean, we're talking about agreements, regulations, and coordination on a scale that we haven't really seen before in the energy sector.
So yeah, lots to unpack here.
Yeah.
But let's start with the fundamentals. Why is this happening? Why are we seeing this push for interconnected energy in the first place?
Okay, so I think it comes down to this fundamental mismatch. You have regions like North Africa that are blessed with abundant sunshine year-round.
They're like the solar powerhouses, right?
Exactly. They've got incredible solar potential. And then you have regions like Central and Northern Europe where the solar resources are much more limited.
Yeah, it's all about geography and climate.
Exactly. And so this creates an opportunity. If we can connect these regions through these supergrids, we can essentially balance things out.
Share the wealth, so to speak.
Exactly. And that's the idea behind cross-country and cross-continent power sharing. Take advantage of the regions with the best resources and make that clean energy available to everyone.
It's kind of like creating a global energy network, a bit like the internet, but for electricity.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And it's not just about sharing existing renewable energy. It's also about unlocking new potential.
You mean like incentivizing the development of even more renewable energy projects?
Exactly, because if you know that you have a market for that energy, even if it's thousands of kilometers away.
Then it makes sense to invest in those projects, right?
Exactly. So it's a win-win.
Mm.
You accelerate the transition to clean energy, and you create a more stable and resilient energy system overall.
Okay, so let's get into some of the specific projects that are already underway, and maybe starting with the one that's capturing everyone's imagination, the Morocco-U.K power project.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So X-Links, which is the company developing the project, their plan is to build this massive solar, wind, and battery storage facility in the Gelmim Oued Noun region of Morocco.
And that's connected to the UK by that 4,000-kilometer subsea cable.
Exactly. And when they say massive, they mean it. We're talking about 1,500 square miles dedicated to renewable energy generation.
That's almost 4 times the size of Los Angeles.
It's huge, and the location is key because that area of Morocco gets about twice the solar intensity compared to the UK, so it's super efficient for solar power generation.
And the goal is to supply enough clean electricity to power millions of British homes.
Yeah, they're aiming to meet about 8% of the UK's electricity needs, which is pretty significant.
Wow, so this is like a game changer potentially, and it's not just a pipe dream. They're aiming to have this operational in the 2030s, so.
Yeah, it's still a few years out, but the fact that they're making this kind of investment shows how serious they are about it.
And Morocco is already connected to Europe through those high voltage cables to Spain, right?
Right, they have two 700-megawatt cables already in operation. So they're building on existing infrastructure, which is smart.
So they're kind of becoming a renewable energy hub for Europe.
Exactly. And the UK project is just one piece of the puzzle. There are other projects in development that are connecting North Africa to Europe, like the GSI interconnector between Greece and Egypt.
Right. That one's been in the works for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, since 2008, actually.
Wow. So they're really committed to making this happen.
Yeah, they've got a major investor on board, the Greek Kopelouzos Group. They're putting in 4.2 billion euros into this.
That's a serious chunk of change.
Yeah, and they're planning to build this submarine electricity cable that can transmit power in both directions.
So it's not just a one-way street.
Exactly. It
Wow.
gives them flexibility. They can import clean energy from Egypt when they need it, and they can export it too if there's excess supply.
So it creates a more balanced and stable grid.
Precisely. And they're aiming for a transfer capacity of 3 gigawatts of electricity per year, which is enough to power millions of homes.
That's massive. And then there's the Tunisia project, which is connecting Tunisia and Italy, right?
That's another key piece of the puzzle. This one involves Terna, which is the Italian transmission system operator,
Right.
and Steg, which is the Tunisian state-owned electricity and gas utility.
So it's a joint effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're building this 220-kilometer bidirectional power link across the Strait of Sicily.
So that's a pretty challenging engineering feat, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The cable's going to be going down to depths of about 800 meters.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah. But the technology is there, and it's going to have a capacity of 600 megawatts. So,
Not as big as GUI, but still a significant amount of power.
oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think what all these projects show is that the Mediterranean is becoming this key region for clean energy transmission between Europe and Africa.
It's like a clean energy highway taking shape.
Exactly. And it's driven by this perfect alignment of interests.
Yeah.
You know, North Africa has the renewable resources, Europe has the demand, and both regions are looking to reduce their reliance on fossil fuels.
It's a win-win situation. And there was an interesting quote from Neved Das Takutotil, a senior renewables analyst at Rystad Energy.
Yeah, what did he say?
He said that North Africa's renewable energy potential is perfectly aligned with Europe's goal of reducing its dependence on Russian natural gas.
Makes total sense. Geographically, it's a natural fit, and it's not just about solar either.
Right. There's huge potential for wind power in North Africa, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to see more and more large-scale solar and wind projects popping up in the region, along with all these subsea cables connecting it to Europe.
So the future is looking bright for North Africa as a renewable energy superpower.
Definitely. And it's not just about the economics. It's also about energy security and geopolitics.
Right, because Europe is looking to diversify its energy sources and reduce its dependence on a single supplier.
Exactly. And this is where these interconnections become really strategic.
Oh.
It's not just about clean energy. It's about resilience and independence.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about connecting Europe and Africa, but what about other parts of the world? Like, what about connecting Europe and North America?
That's where things get even more ambitious and challenging,
Hmm.
because crossing the Atlantic is no small feat.
Yeah, we're talking about thousands of kilometers of underwater cable.
Yeah, the distances are huge and the technical challenges are even greater, but
Mhm.
there is a project in the works that's exploring this possibility, the North Atlantic Transmission One Link, or NATO-L.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. This one is being championed by Laurent Segal and Gerard Reed and Simon Ludlam, and their vision is pretty bold.
Yeah, they want to build this massive 6 gigawatt HVDC system of subsea cables stretching all the way across the Atlantic.
Yeah, it's like science fiction coming to life, a giant power cable connecting two continents.
And this is where HVDC technology comes in, right?
Yeah. Exactly. HVDC stands for high voltage direct current, and it's crucial for transmitting electricity over long distances with minimal energy loss.
So it's kind of like a super efficient power line.
Exactly, and it's what makes these intercontinental connections feasible. So the NATO project is still in the early stages, and there are a lot of hurdles to overcome.
Like what kind of hurdles?
Well, for starters, the technology is still under development. They need to figure out how to build and deploy these massive cables in the deep ocean.
Right, because the Atlantic is no joke. It's deep and rough.
Exactly, and then there's the cost factor.
Mm.
This is going to be an incredibly expensive project.
Billions and billions of dollars.
Probably. And then you have the regulatory and political challenges because this involves multiple countries and international agreements.
So it's a massive undertaking.
Yeah, But the potential benefits are huge. I
Uh,
mean, imagine being able to tap into North America's vast renewable energy resources to power Europe.
that would be a game changer for sure, and it would create a much more interconnected and resilient global energy system.
It's exactly. So it's a project worth watching, even if it takes a while to come to fruition.
Now let's shift our focus to Asia, because there's a lot happening there too, especially in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, Southeast Asia is a really interesting case study because you have this mix of countries with very different energy profiles.
Some are rich in renewable resources, some are not.
Exactly. You have Laos with its abundant hydropower potential. Then you have Indonesia, which has massive potential for solar PV. We're talking up to 2,900 gigawatts.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's huge. And then you have countries like Singapore, which are very limited in terms of natural resources.
So connecting these countries makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it allows them to leverage each other's strengths and create a more balanced and secure energy system.
And there are already some projects underway, right?
Right. You have the Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore Power Integration Project, or LTM is PIP for short.
Catchy.
Yeah, and then you have the Borneo, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines Power Interconnection Project, or PIPP.
So they're really taking this seriously.
Yeah, they recognize that regional energy cooperation is key to the Sustainable Development Goals.
And there's a great quote from Aziz Aman, the group CEO at Indica Energy, who said that enhancing regional energy networks is a strategic necessity for sustainable development in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, he hit the nail on the head because it's about more than just economics. It's about energy security. It's
Wow.
about climate change. It's about regional stability.
It's about creating a more interconnected and resilient world.
Exactly. And it's something that we're going to see more and more of as we move towards a cleaner energy future.
So to sum it all up, we're witnessing the beginning of a really exciting and transformative era in the energy sector.
Yeah, the age of interconnected energy is upon us.
And it's driven by this global push to decarbonize our economies and to create a more sustainable and equitable energy system.
Exactly. And it's not going to be easy. There are huge challenges ahead, technical, financial, regulatory, you name it.
But the potential rewards are enormous. A cleaner, more secure, and more interconnected world.
And I think that's something worth striving for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who are following global energy trends and the transition to clean energy, this is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, this is going to have major implications for geopolitics, economics, technology, you name it.
It's going to reshape the world as we know it.
So buckle up because the future of energy is going to be wild.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. The information we've discussed comes from the sources you shared with us, specifically from oilpress.com.
Yeah, oilprice.com has some great insights on this topic.
If you found this discussion informative, please do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment with your thoughts and questions.
We'd love to hear what you think about the future of interconnected energy.
What are your hopes and concerns? What do you think the impact will be on your country or region?
Let us know in the comments. And as always, thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.
Bye.